Firstly, thank all of you for joining us for this Siemens Solid Edge webinar that today focuses on routing pipes and tubes around your 3D assemblies. This is part of a series of webinars that discusses how your company can undergo a digital transformation, speeding your product development and manufacturing process, and helping to ensure the products you deliver to your customers are world-class. I'm sure you're all aware of Siemens, one of the largest manufacturing companies globally. For more than 165 years, Siemens and its customers have been pushing the boundaries of manufacturing technology. And today, Siemens is recognized as an industry leader in digital transformation for design and manufacturing organizations of all sizes. Let's first take a moment to talk about the evolution of manufacturing. Most of us are familiar with the previous industrial revolutions that have brought us to the 21st century. The first was mechanization using water and steam power in the 18th century. The second was the introduction of mass production using assembly lines, for example, Ford's Model T in the early 20th century. And the third, the advent of computer-controlled machines and robots in the 1980s. At Siemens, we believe we are now witnessing the beginning of a fourth industrial revolution, technical advances that enable a digital transformation, adding intelligence to digital models throughout the product lifecycle, connecting these products to each other and their manufacturing processes, and to their whole value chains and business models, enabling manufacturing organizations of all sizes to take advantage of the industrial internet and become digital enterprises. This digital technology is leveling the playing field for businesses of all sizes, including small and medium-sized businesses, enabling them to disrupt their industries. It's creating opportunities to develop products and services that were once inconceivable. Size, which was once a competitive advantage, can now be a liability as businesses that once dominated their markets can struggle to keep up with young, nimble startups. Digital transformation helps companies make their processes leaner, faster, and more flexible, enabling them to rapidly evolve to react to ever-changing market requirements and conditions. Siemens focuses on several areas where we bring our expertise in the fusion of the virtual and real worlds across the entire value chain for our customers. Some of the key enabling technologies applied by Siemens to enable digital transformation include mobile, smart data and analytics, cloud, connectivity, and cybersecurity. The resulting solutions encompass design and engineering, automation and production, and maintenance and services, and together they enable effective, sustainable solutions for all industrial enterprises that wish to embrace and shape a digital transformation. The Solid Edge portfolio is focused on driving this digital transformation for small and medium-sized manufacturing companies. We see that these manufacturers want complete, fully featured professional engineering tools, but they also need tools that are easy to access and easy to learn. As you'll see in this webinar series, the Solid Edge portfolio is much more than Solid Edge 3D CAD software. It is a complete portfolio of solutions for design, simulation, manufacturing, technical publications, and data management. Together, these solutions speed the complete product development process and help ensure the delivery of world-class products to your customers. With the Solid Edge portfolio, you can create detailed 3D digital models, also known as a digital twin, of your proposed products and use this as the basis for all areas of product development, including concept and detailed design, prototyping, simulation, manufacturing, installation, and service. This digital twin also helps manufacturers address major challenges like increased complexity and increasing regulations. My name is David Chadwick, and I'm your host for this webinar. I'm also joined by Kevin Grayson, who is our presenter for today's topic of routing pipes and tubes around your 3D assemblies. In the interest of time, we will not have a separate Q&A session at the end of this webinar, but you can key in your questions to the webinar interface, and we will get back to you to answer your specific questions. At this point, I'd like to hand over to Kevin to discuss pipe and tube routing in 3D.
Thank you, Dave, and thanks everybody for attending our webinar series today, specifically focused on pipe and tube routing in Solid Edge. A couple weeks ago, we had a session on electrical routing, and today we're going to focus on some very similar tools, this time focusing more on pipe and tube routing, utilizing the Solid Edge Express Route functionality. As we've been going over in this webinar series, we've been talking about process-specific applications within Solid Edge that allow you to create a complete digital mock-up to cover various aspects of your design process. And again, as I mentioned today, we're going to be focusing on the pipe and tube routing. The topics that we're going to cover today is how you can automatically create your routes within Solid Edge utilizing some really unique tools that allow you to create these routes in 3D space very quickly. We'll then go in and show you how you can create piping applications utilizing standard components, typical parts that you might find in a pipe route. We'll also talk about tubing and then also creation of flexible hosing as well, all utilizing the tools that are built into ExpressRoute. And then from there we'll go into documenting this with manufacturing drawings. With that, I'll go ahead and hop into Solid Edge. We're going to be utilizing a data set from one of our Solid Edge customers, Test Corp, and showing you how different applications and creating the routes here. Before we show you the 3D application, I wanted to at least mention from a P&ID or piping and instrumentation diagram perspective, you do have the ability to create these types of layouts within 2D only if that is your focus. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago within our electrical webinar, or electrical routing webinar, the ability to create schematic drawings within our 2D application. And if you're not aware, the Solid Edge drafting application, which is strictly 2D, it is a free tool that you can go out today and download from our website. So again, if you're focused on just strictly 2D applications, you have the ability to do this as well. And just to mention, Solid Edge has built-in schematic blocks within the program. A couple weeks ago, we focused on the electrical blocks, but we also have specific company or industry standard blocks for piping as well. So you'll notice here we've got some different blocks, in this case a compressor tank. We've got many others that are built into our library, and they just essentially allow you to go to the library, drag and drop these blocks out onto your 2D drawing, and then utilize connectors, again, built-in tools into Solid Edge allow you to specify how these blocks are connected. So I wanted to at least mention that from the 2D perspective and just laying out these P&ID type of applications. I'm going to go into the 3D application now to show you how, obviously for better visualization and to really be able to communicate your designs from a 3D environment, how we can lay out this particular application. We're going to look at this skid design. Again, we're going to be focusing on the skid and just creating some pipe routes between different components within this application, but you'll also notice you can do this for entire plant layouts if you wanted to utilize the ExpressRoute tool for that as well. Again, you'll see we've got some different components laid out, utilizing just basic assembly techniques, placing your components where you want them, and we've also created some pipe routes, and I'll show you how this is done here in just a moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off some of the display of some of these components and just focus in on our piping routes specifically. And you can see here we can show exactly what we want to show at any point in time. So in this case, I'm just showing the piping routes that have been created up to this point. I also want to show a couple of other components here. You'll see as we expand our tree, we can maybe show some of the other components that this flange is connected to, so you kind of get an idea of where this is coming from. This is a vapor recovery unit that we're going to be working on today. And again, I'll go back and just turn off the display of those units. I wanted to show you where this was coming from. And we'll get started with the ExpressRoute application. So again, I can very easily go into the ExpressRoute environment, and that's going to give us process-specific tools to create, again, our piping routes or tubing or flexible hoses as well. And we're going to start off just talking about how easy it is to create these routes in 3D space. So again, I'll show you a couple of different methods. The first one's going to be more of a manual method, but you'll see how quick we can lay out these routes. This is what we call Orient Express. And Orient Express allows us to just tag specific components. In this case, I want to start a route that's coming right from this flange. And you'll notice that it automatically comes out straight out of the component that we've selected. You'll notice at the top of the screen, if I want to key in a specific value, I can do that here. Let's say I want to come out 500 millimeters exactly. And then I can specify which direction that comes out in this case. And then again, with keyboard shortcuts, for example, if I hit that keyboard shortcut, you'll notice the triad will change direction. So I can go in a specific direction, X, Y, and Z, or if I hit another keyboard shortcut, if I want to lock it into a specific plane and go in a specific direction along that plane, I can do that as well. In this example, we're going to create some straight paths that are coming in specific directions. In this case, we'll come down in the Z direction, some value. I'm not going to give these all specific values as I create it because we can go through and change that later. But I just want to get the basic direction. You'll notice also as I come out in the X direction, I know that I'm going to be connecting this component back here, and I can locate its key point so that I know exactly how far I need to go in a specific direction. Again, I'll come up in that same value and then come back into that specific component. And I can get that direction and that route created very, very quickly, very easily. And as I rotate the model around, you can see that I've created those routes. Now let's look at this from a side view just for a moment. As I zoom in, you'll notice that Solid Edge automatically creates, connecting constraints for us. It creates what we call a collinear constraint, so we know that this route is coming straight out from the flange. What I want to do, though, is I want to actually put in some gradient to this. I want to go through and maybe put in maybe a 1 degree gradient to this route, maybe for drainage purposes, so that it's not coming straight out. And then you also have the capability, if you want to apply specific dimensional constraints to these routes, maybe I want this one to be exactly 600 millimeters. So again, I just place the dimension, type in the value, and Solid Edge will automatically update the length of that route. And you can do that for all of these other routes as well. Now that I have my route created, kind of in this wireframe 2D mode, I now want to create some 3D piping components along that route. So I just simply access our piping route tool, and Solid Edge comes with a number of standards that you can utilize. So for example, if I want to utilize an ANSI or an ISO standard, or maybe in this case a DIN standard, I can pick which option I would like to use. Specifically what diameter pipe am I utilizing, what material do I want to utilize. We can also specify from a standard parts library specifically what fittings I want to place along that route, and then if I want those fittings placed automatically or not. And then what class. In this case, we're going to be utilizing butt weld fittings for this particular route. I simply just select the route that I created in the previous step, and what you'll notice is Solid Edge will automatically, based on the standard I selected, place all the appropriate fittings. In this case, it looks at all the corners and places those elbows in. If I want to add any other fittings, I just simply select the route location. In this case, I might want to place maybe this flange fitting to connect to our other part, and you'll see it automatically places it there at the end of the route. As I hit preview, you'll notice it'll go through and then create the 3D piping segments along the route that I created. So very quickly, very easily, I can lay those out in 2D, select the 3D components, and get those created. Now, what you'll notice is, if you look closely here, I actually forgot to add some of the elements for some additional pipes. I actually want to add another pipe that comes out this way and then comes up and connects to this component. But I didn't draw that during the initial creation. That's okay, because what I can do at this point is come back in, create those other line segments, and we'll come out, again, utilizing our Orient Express tools. I want to come out here and then come back up into this component very quickly. And then even though the 3D piping route has been created already, and you'll see that listed over here on the left-hand side, I can come back into it and just make a quick edit. So it's not going to, I don't have to start from scratch and reapply those settings again. I simply just say, let's add these two segments to that route. And what I want to draw your attention to is right here, because I have a pipe coming out, this can no longer be an elbow. It actually has to be a T. So Solid Edge will automatically replace the elbow with the T, add in the additional elbow here, and then add the remaining pipe segments that I need to create to finish off that route. Very easy to not only create, but also very easy to go back after the fact and edit. We'll go ahead and hide the paths for a second for clarification. And again, very quickly, we've generated that. Now, I may want to come in and maybe add some other types of components. You'll notice if we zoom in on this location, we have a pipe routing segment here or a spool here that I might want to add maybe some common components to, maybe a valve. So I might want to go through and find that specific route. In this case, it's pipe route 11. And I can also make changes to that to add other components. So we can see here the route that was created. I'm going to go ahead and show those routes. And I may want to make some quick changes to this. One option you have is I may want to split this single pipe into two components. We have a tool called Split Path. And as I select that element, you'll notice it splits it into multiple paths versus just the one. And I may want to designate these to be a specific value. So again, I can place a dimension on that. If I want that to be a specific length, that's 65, I just key in the value and it automatically updates that for me. Now, in terms of placing some of these components, if I want to place a valve right here where those two pipes come in, I can come in and, again, edit that route. And you'll notice here within our piping options, we saw this before. Let's say, for example, I'm utilizing a vendor or a supplier component, and this isn't really a standard component that's in my library, but maybe I've gone to the vendor's website and downloaded their valve, or maybe I've gone out to GrabCAD or some other common repository where I can download components. If I've done that, I can just browse my local drive for those types of fittings or components and very quickly go through and make that change. So in this case, as I select that option and click right there in the middle, I can go out to my components, find the specific valve I want to use, and place that right along that route. And you'll notice that it places it in there automatically. And what's nice about this also is I can come in at any point in time if I wanted to, change the orientation. It comes in right now at 90 degrees, but if I want to go back in and change that, I can do that. Let's hide those routes for a second just for clarification, and we'll come back in and show you how we can do that. So again, I can come back in at any point, select the route. If I want to make any changes to the fittings, I can assign different fittings. I can go through and select it. And again, if I wanted to modify that from 0 degrees to 90 degrees, it'll rotate that around 90 degrees for us. And I can get that exactly the way that I want. So those are some tools for generating pipes, coming back in, making edits to pipes, or maybe adding standard components. Let's talk a little bit about some of the tubing applications. So again, I'm going to change the display for a second, and we'll turn on some other components and take a look at our other applications. As I zoom in here, again, we have some brass fittings here, and I want to again go through and create a route where maybe a tube might reside. And we talked about creating those routes manually earlier. We also have this handy tool called Path Express. Path Express allows us to just simply select the starting and ending points. And what Solid Edge will do is it'll go out there and show us different examples or different options. Maybe I want a minimum distance or a minimum bend. I can go through and set those examples or those options up. If I have maybe a standard where I have to come out of that fitting before the first bend takes place, I can specify the port segment length and that specific value. And as I go through the different options here, I can find exactly which one I want. And once I have it, I just simply right-click and it creates that path automatically for us. And you can go in just like what we did before, add dimensions or make quick modifications, but it gives you a really nice quick starting point. From here, I'm going to go into our tube command, and with the tube command, what's nice about this is, you can specify specific materials within the material library. You have access to a material table that allows you to look at common tubing materials, whether it's aluminum or steel. You can go through and select from there. What's also nice too is if you use a common tube that you use over and over again, what you can do is save different settings, and it'll save your bend radius, your diameters, your materials, and you can just simply apply that very quickly. We'll just call this the drain line. And again, just like before, we just simply select the route that was created, in this case with Path Express, and then it'll go through and create that tube automatically for us. Now, as I zoom in, I wanted to show you some other options that you have with the end of the tube, and you can work on each end of the tube and specify different end conditions. Let's turn off that brass fitting just for a second. I have options if I want that tube to extend into the fitting maybe a little bit. I can type in extension values. If I want to specify a specific treatment, whether it's expanding the tube or putting a flange, I have the option to do that as well. And just like what we saw before, if you use the same type of end conditions on your different tubes, you can save those settings. And we'll preview that, and then you'll see how it extends it out and also puts that flange on the end. A little bit more realistic than just the basic end. And we can do that on both ends if we'd like. What's also nice about tubes is I have the ability to get a bend table off of my tube. And by selecting the tube, this outputs different information for me. So for example, if I'm utilizing a tube bender, if I need to get X, Y, and Z point location for the elements of the tube, if I need to get any other type of information, bend radius, things of that nature, I have the cut length. I can see exactly how much tube I need and exactly the different feed lengths for each of those segments. And that's very quick to access from our bend table command. All right, what about flexible hosing? Let's go through and maybe show you a quick example of that. And we'll turn off the display of some of these other components. And as you'll notice here, we've got one specific flexible hose here. I'll show you quickly how we can create that. And again, within Solid Edge, we have tools that allow you to create key point curves or curves versus straight line segments. So for example, if I go to my key point curve option, maybe I want to select initially the port here and come out of that port. And again, I can lock in specifically which direction I want to create that in. So let's zoom out just a little bit. And then we'll zoom back in just so we can see exactly how we're creating the tube. And you'll see here, we actually lock this into the right side view. And then let's just zoom in on this area for a second, and we'll show how we can create that. And then let's lock it into a specific direction. Let's maybe come out. Let's just click a couple of times out here in space. And then maybe come down here a little bit. And then we'll connect it specifically to the end of the tube here. So the flexible or the key point curve that I created, I can modify its shape with these red dots, and you can add as many of those control points as you want. What you also have the ability to do is maybe this is a purchased component. If you want to make this a fixed length, you have the ability to say, well, I'm buying this off of the shelf. Maybe I'm buying this at 950 millimeters. So I can type in a specific value there and lock the length of that in. And then just like what we saw earlier, just simply go to my tube option, and we'll call this the airline. And then again, I have a save setting for that. Maybe this is made out of polyethylene as an example. And then I just simply select the key point curve, and then it'll create that flexible tube for us. What about manufacturing documentation? How do I, get the information that I need to have these manufactured? So we'll go ahead and again turn on the display of some other components here. And maybe, for example, I want to find all of my tubes or all of my pipe segments. We have a tool here called Query, which allows us to very easily find any component that represents a pipe or a tube. And maybe I want to just show all their center lines. So we can do that very easily. And maybe I want to document this in a 2D drawing. So what I'll do is I'll just take a quick snapshot of this view. And then we'll save this and bring this into a 2D drawing application. So again, right here from the 3D application, let's go ahead and get out of ExpressRoute first. What I'll do is I'll take the assembly with our center lines and we'll create a new drawing. This will take the 3D model out onto a 2D piece of paper. I don't have to go through and select which one I want to use. I just simply say, let's place a drawing view of on my model. Let's maybe place a front view out there, and then we'll specify specifically what components we want to look at. And we'll go ahead and utilize that same display configuration, and then we'll place that front view right on our drawing. And actually what I want to do initially is go back through and turn those center lines on. I forgot to click that option when I placed it. Let's go ahead and specify that. And then let's update our views. And again, I made a quick mistake here. Let's go through and show the actual snapshot versus the display configuration. And let's update that view again. Snapshot is what actually had the center lines for those piping components. That was my mistake on selecting the wrong view. But again, now that we have those center lines displayed, now what we can do is come in, and if we want to specify the length of specific routes, we can do that very easily. If I want to specify the distances between some of these routes, I can come in and very quickly pick up different dimensions, and you'll notice allows us to place those in line or stacked, and then creates a nice dimensioning scheme for us. And again, we can document those routes. Again, you can see the gradient on the one that we created earlier. Another option that you have is we can specify different display configurations. And I jumped ahead of myself a little bit before. In this case, now I want to select the display configuration, and maybe in this case just show a specific spool. So as we come in, I may want to go through and specify, maybe this is a specific scale, 0.3, and we can go through and shade this in if we'd like with a specific shading option, and we'll just place that spool out onto the sheet. Now, if I go back to my assembly, if you remember earlier we made some modifications. We'll come back out and select the piping routes here. And within our display configuration, when we added the component earlier, I didn't save that to the display configuration. So I can come back out here to the 3D environment and show the valve that we had added there earlier. And what I'll do is I will update that to include that in our view. So we'll update that. And then when we come out to our drawing, what's nice about the 2D drawing and the 3D documentation is they're always up to date. And we can automatically update our views and specify that we want to show whatever we're looking for there. And then obviously from a parts list perspective, if I want to get specific information out, for example, a pipe cut list as an example, I can specify specifically what options I want to place within my cut list. I want to get, in this case, pipes and pipe fittings and other components. And I can go through and specify specifically from which components I want to get that information from. And then Solid Edge will do the work for us in creating our piping parts list. It shows all the different components that are there. It shows the cut length of each of my piping components and gives us the ability to generate that very, very quickly. So we're right there at the half hour. I'll go through and very quickly do a quick summary for you. Hopefully you saw within the webinar how easy it is to connect your mechanical systems with routing capabilities, with piping, with tubing, with flexible hoses, and how automated that workflow is. We did want to mention too, the pipes and the tubes are fully associative to the components that they're connected with. So if my parts change, if they change position or get moved, my pipes automatically update to that. And then also the ability to create bin tables for my tubes, generate reports, and get cut list information from a manufacturing perspective. Thanks again for your time and attention today. I'm going to turn it back over to Dave, and we'll wrap up the presentation.
So I just wanted to make a couple of comments. We have a lot of case studies of how our customers are applying Solid Edge on our website. So if you go to solidedge.com and you look in the case studies area, this particular one I'm showing here is from a company called Hydrovision. They make hydraulic power systems. As you can imagine, there's a lot of piping and tubing involved with those power systems. So the comment that they make is that they've been able to really reduce the number of actual physical prototypes that they used to create by 80% by modeling their complete equipment using Solid Edge and using the piping and tubing type of capabilities that Kevin showed to really model the complete package. So if you go to solidedge.com, look in our case studies area, you can search by application type or industry type to see a lot of different case studies. I'd also like to mention we have an open forum to discuss any issues around Solid Edge. So the best way to find this is just to do a search for the Solid Edge community. There's a knowledge base there with a lot of interesting articles, including some articles on piping and tubing. There's a discussion forum where customers are asking questions about how to perform particular types of operations. And one of the nice things is they're usually answered by other customers, although we from Siemens do get involved as needed as well. So there's general Q&A and blogs as well. So I had a quick look in this area to look through some discussions on the piping and tubing area, and I saw there was interesting discussions around calculating lengths, creating flexible pipes, doing bending and unbending, creating isometric diagrams as well. So just a couple of final words from me. If you would like to find out more about Solid Edge, you can call us on this number and speak to us directly. Or you can go to the link that is shown here and download a trial version of Solid Edge that you can use for free for a period of 45 days. And just a reminder that this webinar was just one in a sequence of about 15 webinars that we're doing. We're getting towards the end of the webinar series, so actually if you go online, you can get replays of the first 12 webinars that we've done, and you can also register for the webinars that we're planning to do to complete the series. So at this point, thanks a lot for joining us for this web presentation. Please enjoy the rest of your day.